I have been thinking recently quite a bit about the future of the breathwork, and more than that, I mean the work in general. And I feel the need for really radical changes. 20 years is a long time, and many changes happen. Certainly developed the theory much farther. Also the practical part. I mean, we now describe the way we would like to see the breathwork in a book. It's all there written down for people who want to read it. But also the theoretical concepts have really expanded very much from the very narrow concept of psychedelics and holotropic breathwork to the concept of holotropic states of consciousness, and the realization that the same theory and also the same sort of practical approaches apply to a number of situations, that it should really be teaching people how to handle situations in holotropic states, whether they are induced by psychedelics, by breathwork or some other powerful experiential therapy, or whether they happen spontaneously. The other thing which emerged, which is I think is really crucial, is that very narrow connection, close connection with archetypal psychology. I really believe that that's the future of psychiatry and psychology if it goes in the right direction, and the current trend just completely burns out. So we need to really expand the training and take it out of the narrow confines of teaching people breath work. Basic principles that are not negotiable as long as people want to call it holotropic. And so one of the situations is using the whole cartography of the psyche, not to limit it to biography or to rebirthing or to past life regressions, but really use that model of the psyche that describes all its dimensions and all of its extraordinary capacities. The other one is somehow working with the inner self-healing intelligence, but on the other hand, not to make it into a dogma, so that we would stand back when some real help, real support is necessary, even in the middle of the session. But we have to be always sort of aware of the fact that we should cooperate with the healing intelligence, not introduce some of our own ideas and concepts. The other thing that I'm concerned about is what has become of the music from the time when we were really using a lot of spiritual musics, music taken from the native traditions, good classical music, and the introduction of this sort of new style, as it is called, ending up even with techno or electronic music. Anybody who has ever done his or her own work knows that it's a torture to listen to electronic music when you are in a non-ordinary state of consciousness. So I see this work with holotropic states as engaging something that the anthropologists call primal mind. It's a certain core element in the psyche that is independent of historical period, that is independent of country, of culture, is independent of race, is independent of gender, and can really resonate with people on whoever they are, wherever they are, on a very deep level. And also some of the extremes, we had a situation where people cut the music to 1 hour, But another thing was interrupting it at the time when still a lot of things is happening, but people are not finished. So that is also something that should become one of the necessary rules for this work. So those are some of the basic idea, and then also, I don't want this to make an academic sort of procedure, but I also would like this to be presented in such a way that it's not seen easily as woo-woo, as flaky, as a mystery cult, rather than modern approach to psychotherapy and to psychiatry. So I would trust you in this. I mean, you were in this longer than any other facilitator. You were there before we ever started the training, and also now we have many discussions. How I see things, what I would like to happen. And again, I don't want to be a kind of an emperor, a dictator, but again, I have a certain concept of boundaries beyond which this whole development should not go. And I'll trust you that you would be able to make that distinction. I mean, what is still kind of a genuine approach to holotropic states, and where it is sort of taking off some weird sort of areas. I wanted to start this by saying sweetheart, but then I realized some people might not be convinced that this was my sweetheart Brigitte that I'm talking about. So I want to give you a name. I just was 86 years old, and I obviously don't know how long I'm going to be here. And you are somebody closest to me and somebody who knows me best. So I would like to just say a few words about my hopes and wishes for the future of the work, and would like to ask you if you want, of course, if you would somehow be involved in this development to any extent that you want, and see if some of the principles that we both believe in would be maintained as the work goes on. So let me just down a few ideas about the work, how I have been thinking about it these days.